My name is Harold Whitmore. For 30 years, I built a life beside my son, Liam. Together we raised a home, a dream, and a company from nothing. When Liam passed away last winter, I thought grief would be my hardest trial. I was wrong. The real blow came from the woman who had promised to love him forever. My daughter-in-law, Melissa. The day after his funeral, she looked me straight in the eye and told me to get out of the house he and I built together. "You don't belong here anymore, Harold," she said. "This house is mine now. Go find a park bench or a dumpster, whatever suits you." So I picked up my old coat, walked down the marble steps, and left without a word. All I took with me was my phone. One call. That's all it took. 5 days later, that same woman was on her knees in front of me, crying, begging for a single dollar. Before I tell you how that happened, let me know where you're listening from in the comments. And if you believe that wisdom and patience can cut deeper than anger, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories like this one. The morning after we buried Liam, silence filled the house like heavy fog. It wasn't the peaceful kind of silence that follows prayer or remembrance. It was cold, brittle, the kind of silence that breaks if you breathe too loud. I sat alone in the living room, in the big leather chair Liam and I had picked out years ago. Across from me, the space where he used to sit was empty, so painfully empty it hurt to look at it. Every corner of that home screamed his absence. He was in the grooves of the wooden floors we laid ourselves. He was in the faint smell of engine oil from the workshop where he built prototypes for his startup. He was in the quiet hum of the servers that still blinked down in the basement. Then came the click-clack of heels on hardwood, sharp, impatient. Melissa. She descended the grand staircase, not in black, but in a crisp white business suit that looked freshly tailored. Her face was flawless, her expression flat. She passed me without a glance, scrolling through her phone. "Yes, move forward with the liquidation," she said into her headset. "The sooner we unload the secondary assets, the better. The past is the past." That sentence hit harder than any slap. I realized then, morning was over for her, before it even began. The next day, we sat across from each other in the walnut conference room of Liam's attorney, Mr. Howard Crane. The air smelled of polished wood and old paper. I'd known Howard for 2 decades. He'd helped Liam register his first patent. He looked at me with quiet sorrow before slipping on his reading glasses. Melissa sat opposite me, her posture stiff, her smile faintly triumphant, like a CEO waiting for a deal to close. Mr. Crane cleared his throat. "This is the last will and testament of Liam Whitmore." He began to read. The legal words blurred together, but the meaning was crystal clear. Clause after clause handed everything, every share, every account, every property to Melissa. All $53 million of it. When my name finally appeared, it was a single polite line. "To my father, Harold Whitmore, I leave my deepest gratitude." And that was it. It wasn't about the money. I never cared for that. But the feeling of being erased, of being written out of my own son's life, left me hollow. Across the table, Melissa's lips curved into a small, satisfied smile. She didn't look at me, but I felt her victory just the same. Back at the house, the mask finally came off. She walked through every room like an inspector at an auction, pointing, commanding. These photos, all of them, gone, were redesigning. Those old shelves, sell them. When she reached Liam's private study, the room filled with his books and journals, she stopped and turned to 2 movers behind her. "Everything in here goes. I'm putting a treadmill and a juice bar instead." I stepped forward. "Melissa," I said quietly, "this room is where Liam dreamed, learned, lived. Please, just this one room." She laughed. "You can't sell memories, Harold. They don't pay the bills." Then her tone hardened. I'm done living with ghosts. Get your things and get out." Her words were bullets. When she shouted, "Go die in a dumpster if you have to," something inside me went still. I didn't fight, didn't shout. I simply nodded, picked up my coat and walked toward the door. Outside, the sky was a dull gray. Rain began to fall, cold, relentless. My suitcase waited on the porch, already packed. She'd done it herself. As the front door slammed behind me, the sound echoed like a verdict. Standing there, drenched and trembling, I looked back at the house. Every brick, every window, every plank carried a memory of my son. I whispered, barely audible, "You built this for us, Liam. You promised it would always be our home." That's when I stopped shaking. The pain hardened into resolve. I turned and started walking, each step a silent vow. A taxi driver with kind eyes dropped me off at the Maple Leaf Inn, a cheap roadside motel on the highway's edge. The neon sign buzzed weakly. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old carpet. The room was small, a single bed, a flickering lamp, and a TV bolted to the dresser. It was the opposite of the world I'd just been thrown out of, but at least it was mine. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the hum of the mini fridge. For the first time in days, the silence belonged to me. I replayed every word Melissa had said, every smug look, every insult. The humiliation burned hot for a moment, then cooled into something sharper, clarity. Liam had been a planner. He never left things to chance. He'd built systems for everything, his business, his finances, even his friendships. So how could a man like that leave his own father with nothing? It didn't make sense, unless he hadn't. A thought flickered, faint but persistent. What if there was more to that will? I pulled out my phone. My hand hovered over one name in my contacts, Mr. Crane. One call could change everything, but it could also confirm my worst fear, that my son truly hadn't thought of me. I pressed the button. "Mr. Crane," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's Harold Whitmore." There was a pause on the other end, a sigh heavy with things unsaid. "Harold, I was just about to call you," he said. Those words sent a tremor through me. He was about to call me. He spoke gently but firmly. Liam was an extraordinary man. He planned for every outcome, and he left behind certain instructions I wasn't allowed to reveal until a specific event occurred. My heart pounded. "What event?" "Melissa forcing you out of the house," he replied. That act fulfilled the condition. I sat frozen, gripping the phone. "Your son wasn't blind, Harold. He knew exactly who she was. And he designed a test, a character test. The will we read was only the first half of his plan." I closed my eyes. Relief, pain, pride, they all crashed together. Mr. Crane's voice grew steadier. "By throwing you out, Melissa triggered the contingency clause. Liam left a sealed envelope in my vault. It contains the true instructions for his estate." For the first time since the funeral, I felt something like hope. "What do we do now?" I asked. "Now," Mr. Crane said, "we follow Liam's plan exactly, and we do it quietly. No confrontation, no warnings. We let her reveal who she truly is." He explained how the estate's assets could be placed under review, temporarily frozen for valuation and compliance. It would look routine, harmless, bureaucratic. But in truth, it would be a wall she could not see until she hit it. "Your job," he continued, "is to disappear. Don't answer her calls. Don't speak to anyone. Let her believe you're gone. Her arrogance will do the rest." When the call ended, I sat in that tiny room staring at my reflection in the dark TV screen. I didn't see a broken old man anymore. I saw a father with a mission. The game had begun. 3 days passed after that call. I stayed hidden inside the Maple Leaf Inn, following Mr. Crane's instructions like scripture. My phone remained dark, my world reduced to the hum of highway traffic and the ticking of an old wall clock. It felt strange, watching the world move without me. But I knew every hour of silence was another thread tightening around Melissa's neck. While I sat alone in that quiet room, she was exploding into the world like a firework, bright, loud, and fleeting. Mr. Crane's investigator later told me everything. She began with a shopping spree so wild the salespeople whispered about it for days. Designer handbags, diamond watches, a new wardrobe in every shade of arrogance. She moved through boutiques not as a shopper, but as a conqueror collecting tribute. When asked if she wanted to set up billing, she laughed. "Don't worry, the estate will cover it." Then came the car, cherry red, doors that lifted like wings, price tag over $200,000. She dropped a deposit like she was flicking lint from her sleeve. "The rest will clear once the lawyers finish their boring paperwork," she said. But the house, that was her masterpiece. She hired a famous designer known for minimalist marble and chrome, a man whose motto was, "Erase the past." Together they walked through each room, her heels clicking like hammers on a coffin. "Tear down this wall, remove the shelves, paint everything white," she ordered. "And this room," she pointed to Liam's study. "Gut it. I want light, glass, and a smoothie bar right here." She didn't see history, she saw square footage. And somewhere, I imagine, Liam was watching through the cracks of heaven, shaking his head with that quiet half-smile of his. The party came next, an evening of champagne, loud music, and strangers filling a house built on love. She stood in the center of it all, glass raised high, her laughter sharp and hollow. To anyone listening, she sounded like a queen. But her crown was made of paper, and the rain was coming. 5 days after she threw me out, Melissa decided to treat herself to an expensive breakfast downtown. A croissant that cost $20, a latte with gold flakes on top. She swiped her new black credit card and waited. Beep. Declined. She frowned, told the barista to try again. Beep. Declined. The young man glanced up and nervous. "I'm sorry, ma'am. It's not going through." Her smile twitched. She handed him another card. Beep. Declined again. The cafe grew quiet. A woman at the next table looked over. Melissa's cheeks burned crimson. She paid with a few wrinkled bills from her purse and marched outside. In the driver's seat, she called the private banking line on speaker. A calm voice answered. "Good morning, Mrs. Whitmore. How may I assist you?" "Yes, there's some mistake," she snapped. "My accounts aren't working." A short pause, the sound of typing. "I see a temporary hold, ma'am. Filed this morning by the executor of the estate. Standard procedure during asset valuation." "Standard procedure?" she shouted. "I'm the sole owner. Remove it immediately." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitmore. My hands are tied until the probate review is complete." Her breath hitched, half rage, half disbelief. "How long will that take?" "Hard to say, ma'am. A few weeks, perhaps." The call ended with a polite click, leaving only the sound of her heartbeat in the car's silence. She didn't know it yet, but the walls of her new empire had already closed in. Within hours, the rest began to crumble. The interior designer called, his tone no longer syrupy, but sharp. "Melissa, my crew showed up to start work and got turned away. Some legal injunction about preserving property during estate review. We're billing you for lost time." Then came the dealership. "Mrs. Whitmore, our 72-hour hold has expired. Without final payment, the vehicle goes to another buyer. Deposit non-refundable." Even her party caterers sent invoices stamped overdue. Each call chipped away at her confidence until only panic remained. By sunset, she'd gone from sipping champagne to pacing the marble foyer in bare feet, calling anyone who might fix it. When no one answered, she turned to the only man she thought still feared her, Mr. Crane. She jabbed the call button, her voice trembling with fury. "What have you done, Howard? You can't freeze my money. You work for me." He listened in silence, letting the storm rage. When she finally paused for breath, his tone was calm, professional. "Mrs. Whitmore, I assure you every step I've taken is standard legal protocol. The assets must remain secure until all conditions are met." "This is theft," she screamed. "On the contrary," he replied, "this is protection. Protection for the family legacy." She slammed the phone down so hard it cracked the screen. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Inside, the queen of the Whitmore estate stood in her marble palace, surrounded by silence and unpaid bills. She didn't know it yet, but she'd already lost everything. By the fifth evening, Melissa's fury had burned down to ashes. Her calls went unanswered. Her friends, those bright-smiled strangers who'd toasted her new fortune, were suddenly busy. Every door she knocked on stayed closed. She was alone. And alone, people do desperate things. That night, she sat at the grand kitchen island, surrounded by silence and unpaid invoices. Her reflection stared back from the marble counter. Tired eyes, smeared lipstick, a queen without a crown. When her phone finally rang, she snatched it up as if it were a life raft. "Mrs. Whitmore," said Mr. Crane's calm voice, "I think it would be best if we met in person tomorrow morning. 10 o'clock. He didn't wait for her answer. The line went dead. That same evening, Mr. Crane called me. "Harold," he said, "it's time. She's ready to listen." He sent a car. I put on my Navy suit, the one I'd worn to my son's wedding, and waited in the motel lobby until the driver arrived. For the first time in weeks, I felt steady. The law office smelled of leather and old books. I sat in the waiting room reading a worn history novel, the same way I used to read while Liam coded through the night. Every page turned felt like a heartbeat counting down to justice. The door opened. Melissa stepped in. She looked nothing like the woman who'd thrown me out. Her expensive clothes were wrinkled, hair tied hastily back, eyes wide and hollow. She searched the room for the receptionist, then froze when she saw me. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. In that single moment, I saw the whole story flicker across her face: shock, fear, denial, and finally the heavy recognition of truth. "Harold," she whispered, I was so worried." Her voice cracked on the lie. I didn't answer. I simply closed my book, set it aside, and met her eyes. Silence filled the room, thick, merciless. She shifted from one foot to the other, searching for sympathy that no longer existed. Then the inner office door opened. Mr. Crane stood there, composed as ever. "Mr. Whitmore, Mrs. Whitmore," he said evenly, "please come in." We sat around the same mahogany table where only days ago I had been erased. Mr. Crane at the head, me on his right, Melissa on his left. Her hands trembled in her lap. The diamond on her finger caught the light like a guilty secret. Mr. Crane spoke first. "Mrs. Whitmore, you've experienced certain difficulties accessing the estate funds. I imagine you'd like to know why." She nodded quickly. "Yes, none of this makes sense. You said I was the beneficiary." He slid a thin folder toward her. "This is the will we read last week. Please note section 2. Her eyes skimmed the page, confused. He tapped a highlighted paragraph with his pen. "It states that for a period of 30 days, the inheritor assumes a solemn duty to uphold the welfare and legacy of the Whitmore family." He paused. "That clause is legally binding. It includes the living members of the family, namely Mr. Whitmore." Melissa blinked. "So what? I didn't hurt him." "On the contrary," he said gently. 5 days after the will was executed, you forcibly removed him from the home. You told him. He glanced at his notes. Go die in a dumpster. She flinched as if struck. That action, he continued, constitutes a direct violation of fiduciary duty, and that breach activated your late husband's contingency clause. He reached into his briefcase and withdrew a cream-colored envelope sealed with dark blue wax. Liam's family crest pressed into it like a signature from beyond the grave. Mr. Crane placed it in the center of the table. This document is Liam Whitmore's final codicil. It supersedes everything else. He opened it carefully, the sound of tearing paper echoing like thunder in that still room. To my wife, Melissa Whitmore, he read, I leave a monthly allowance of $2,000, contingent upon verified full-time employment. She may reside rent-free in the guest cottage. Any failure to work or misconduct will terminate this support. Melissa gasped, shaking her head. That's impossible. He loved me. Mr. Crane continued. All remaining assets, shares, accounts, and properties transfer to the Whitmore Legacy Trust, overseen by Harold Whitmore. My breath caught. A weight settled on my shoulders, heavy, but right. The trust's purpose, Mr. Crane read on, is to establish the Liam Whitmore Scholars Program, providing technology education for underprivileged youth. He lowered the page. The room went still except for Melissa's unsteady breathing. This, he said softly, is your husband's true will. Pause. Silence stretches. Melissa's face went pale, then gray. Her lips moved soundlessly before she slumped sideways, fainting onto the carpet. The mighty queen of the Whitmore estate lay motionless at our feet, defeated not by rage, but by truth. Mr. Crane set the paper back in its envelope, folded his hands and whispered, Justice at last. 6 months have passed since that morning in Mr. Crane's office. The season has changed, so have I. The silence of that cheap motel room has been replaced by something better, the sound of life. Typing on keyboards, children laughing, the buzz of new beginnings. I now stand at a wooden podium inside a bright new building with sunlight streaming through tall windows. A banner hangs above me, the Liam Whitmore Tech Scholars Foundation. I'm wearing that same navy suit, but it doesn't feel like armor anymore. It feels like purpose. Before me sit dozens of students, the first group of scholars. They're nervous, excited, full of hope. Good morning, everyone. My name is Harold Whitmore, and I am Liam's father. When my son was your age, he was curious, obsessed with how things worked. He once took apart our family's television just to see the gears inside. He broke it completely, and then spent all night fixing it. That curiosity became the foundation of his life. He believed that technology should not belong to the privileged few, but to every dreamer with courage to learn. Many people remember Liam for the money he made, but that fortune was never his goal. It was just fuel for something greater. Opportunity. I look around this room, and I see his real legacy, you. When the ceremony ended, I stepped aside and watched the students explore their new computers. Each bright screen reflected a piece of the future. I felt the kind of peace that only comes after a long storm. For weeks after Melissa's collapse, I had dreams about that moment. Her face going pale, her body falling like a curtain dropping on a play that had run too long. At first, I felt satisfaction, even a strange relief. But as time passed, that feeling faded. Justice was served, revenge was complete. Yet the real victory was what came after. I had spent months thinking revenge would fill the empty space Liam left behind. But it didn't. Only purpose could do that. Now his library is my office. The oak shelves still stand, but they hold more than books. They hold blueprints, lesson plans, and the dreams of a new generation. Sometimes I catch myself smiling when I see a student scribble notes on a whiteboard, just like Liam used to do. Every month, the trust sends me a report. At the bottom is a small note. Melissa Whitmore, stipend released. The first time I saw it, I asked Mr. Crane how she was doing. He smiled softly. "She's working," he said. "She got a job at a downtown coffee shop." I imagined her there, green apron, hair pulled back, calling out orders. Maybe someone complains that their drink is too cold. Maybe she forces a tired smile and starts again. It isn't a punishment of poverty. It's a sentence of understanding. For the first time in her life, she's earning something honestly. And that is worth more than all the money she lost. I don't hate her anymore. I barely think of her at all. Some people learn through love, others through loss. She chose the second path. As sunlight fades through the library windows, I sit at Liam's old desk. The room is alive with quiet energy, computers cooling, whiteboards filled with ideas, the echo of laughter still in the air. On the corner of the desk stands a photo of him on a mountain trail, grinning into the sun. I look at it every evening and say the same thing. You did it, son. Justice isn't always loud. It doesn't always arrive with a judge's hammer or a shout of triumph. Sometimes it's quiet, a steady heartbeat after a long fight, a library filled with young minds, a legacy that keeps breathing. Liam didn't leave me money. He left me a mission, and in serving it, I found myself again. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. True strength isn't about anger or revenge. It's about patience. It's about having the wisdom to wait for the truth to do its work. So the next time someone wrongs you, remember, sometimes the most powerful move is the quiet one. Because justice, when it's earned, doesn't need to shout. Thank you for listening to my story. If you believe that wisdom and patience are the strongest weapons, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and tell me where you're listening from in the comments below. Your stories matter. Your voice matters.